Welcome back to College Conversations. I'm Dr. Fedor and I help you navigate college. Please remember to hit subscribe so I can continue to bring you these helpful videos. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what to do when you can't finish your work on time. Happens to all of us. Life happens, things happen, especially these days. And it's helpful to think about, well, what should I be doing? So here's what to do when you can't meet your deadline or you can't finish your work on time. Number one, I want you to assess the situation. Calmly assess the situation. Exactly what can't you finish and by when? Make a list in chronological order of what is due. Now that's very important. Double check all those due dates. Make sure you're working with current information because sometimes things change and maybe the professor changed the due date and you didn't realize it, or they sent out an email, you missed it, or you didn't see the announcement on your course management system. And there's so many, you have multiple classes, multiple emails, and it's easy to like, oh, I missed that, this date got changed for some reason. So make sure that you're working with current information. One thing that I love about my Keurig coffee maker is that when it's time to descale, it gives me the option. It's like descale now or descale later. And usually I hit descale later, right? Because, who wants to like drop what they're doing and descale? But at least it gives me the option and I really appreciate that. So if you work for Keurig, that's great. Thanks for that. So sometimes just the practice of putting things in chronological order makes the insurmountable feel more doable. So you have some mastery over it. You have all your deliverables in order. So double check those due dates. Just calmly assess the situation first and have everything written down in chronological order, because that gets you set up and prepared for step number 2, which is ask for help. Now, if you're in a group project situation, talk to the other members of your group. Maybe your portion of the task of the group assignment turned out to be more time consuming than you thought. It turned out to be more involved or something. So there's that. If you are on your own, ask a librarian, ask a tutor, ask a classmate. But hopefully the list that you made in step 1 gives you some mastery over it. And then instead of going to somebody and saying, oh, I'm so overwhelmed or whatever, I don't know where to start, you have something in your hand like, okay, this is why I'm overwhelmed. I've got this to do. I've got that to do. And you're working with up-to-date information and up-to-date due dates. Show them the list that you made, email it to them and say, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I can't meet all these due dates. Can you give me some help? Make sure that you understand the assignments completely too. That's another thing. Sometimes when we're overwhelmed, you read through something quickly and then you're like, oh my God, I've got, there's all these parts to it or whatever. But then, if you're calm and you read through the directions again, you're like, oh, right, that was something that we already did that piece, and I'm supposed to just build on that. It's not a start from scratch thing. Or, you thought that it was a 15-page paper and it's really only a 5-page paper or something because you thought that the L was a 1 or something. So, that's really important. So calmly assess the situation, go over the instructions again, and make sure that you really understand them, and then freak out. No, and keep on figuring it out. Like, okay, you're working with the correct information, and it's you're gathering everything together. And that way, when you go to somebody for help, you can say, yeah, this is why. Here's everything that's due Friday or whatever it is. Maybe somebody who's had that assignment in the past and they can kind of help you rein it in a little bit. Like, oh yeah, I did that and this is how I kind of set myself up for success, or this is the outline that I made, to do that part of it. Number 3, talk to your professor, but make sure you're not doing this all the time. So save this one for when you really need it. Talk to your instructor, let them know what's going on, bring the list. Okay, make sure, like, is this right? I've got this to do, and everything. And then maybe they can give you an extension on even some part of your assignment, because if you're feeling overwhelmed, even just 24 hours makes you feel better. That just feels like a gift. Like, oh, well, okay, then you don't have to turn in that part of it, until the next day or something. So, and if they say no, be polite, but at least you've asked, and, you let them know that, wait a minute, you're under a lot of stress here, and the reasons, the list and everything else. But no, there's no harm in asking, especially if you have solid reasons and you're not doing it all the time. Like, you're not doing it every week. You're not saying like, oh, I'm going to be late, this week again with my assignment or something. But overall, it's better to let them know what's going on, especially if you're part of a group project. Number 4. Don't ignore the due dates. You can't just ignore due dates like spam or a dating app when you swipe left on the person or whatever and they disappear forever. It's not like that. So, it's much better for you to proactively go to the instructor and say, this is my situation, and again, being polite. If they say no, then that's okay. Then you work with that. But I can't stress this enough. Don't just ignore the due dates. Like, it's nothing good will come of you just ignoring it, So proactively follow these tips and make yourself a plan. So that's much better than just ignoring the due dates. And lastly, number 5, I want you to reflect on what caused the situation. Not right now in the middle when you're making your plan. Like, if your house is on fire, you're going to get out of the house and, put out the fire. You're not going to figure out what caused the fire until later on. So at some point when you have yourself caught up, calmly reflect on the situation and ask yourself, what is it with my time management that's out of whack? Maybe you overcommitted yourself that particular week, or maybe there's, some activities or clubs or something that it's like, oh, okay, I'm not really into that anymore, or I don't need to do that anymore. You can kind of scale back your time commitments elsewhere. You might want to check out the interview that I did about time management with Will Desura, founder of Soul Trek Coaching. And he gives a lot of good advice about time management for college students. So maybe you do have too many commitments on your plate and you want to scale some of those back, and that would free up your time. So to review, what you should do when you can't finish your work on time. Number 1, calmly assess the situation and write down your deliverables in chronological order according to the due date, and make sure you're working with up-to-date information, because some of those due dates may have changed. You never know. In the past couple of years, things have changed a lot. So you never know. So work with current information. 2, ask for help from a librarian, a tutor, or a classmate. Maybe find somebody who's had that class before, that assignment before, and ask them for help. Number 3, talk to your professor, but don't do this all the time. Save this one for when you really need it. Things piled up and, you had extenuating circumstances. Number 4, be proactive by not ignoring the due dates. Very important. Just don't blow off the due dates. Think, okay, I'm going to, figure something out. And number 5, reflect on the situation. After you have things under control, go back and say, all right, now what happened? Everything just kind of like fell apart this week. I had this, I had that, this happened. And reflect on the situation and see where you might be able to reallocate some of your time. So please remember to hit subscribe so I can continue to bring you helpful videos. And please share this with people who you think might find this useful. Good luck getting yourself back on track. You can do it. I have faith in you. Just follow my tips. So get yourself back on track and remember to keep learning.